Fading future, shattered dreams, end of times ain't what it seems.
Hello, friends. It's Sam Cheney reporting for Weaponized News. Today, June 12th, 2026. Thank you for joining us on this Friday edition of Weaponized News. Quite a bit of news to get to today for you. Let's take a look. Allegedly, we're going to have a peace deal with Iran. That's what's being floated out there. Even Iran is saying now there may be some type of peace deal, but as we know, the aardvarks are looking to disrupt peace. We'll take a look at that. Their claim that we can have a peace deal, but they still have a right to go ahead and bomb Iran. So peace equals bombing Iran, essentially, according to Aardvark Land Secretary of Defense, Katz. Take a look at this. Orwellian development. I don't see how we can have peace there as long as Aardvark Land's hell-bent on the greater Aardvark Land project, as we continue to report here. Take a look at this. We will take a look at this. What is up with the Strait of Hormuz? Looks like it's essentially locked down still. All the back and forth between the peace negotiations, dare I say, on this Friday, between America and Iran. Tulsi Gabbard put out a report about U.S. taxpayer-funded global Biolab program. We're going to take a look at that on this Friday. The Department of War released its third UFO files. No one seems to care. We'll take a look at the third release of UFO files from the Department of War. We have economic news as Elon Musk has become the world's first trillionaire with a T. We have more Epstein news as per usual. We have geopolitical news as we have top banker, Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, saying that Canada will be part of the next new world order, or world order, as we're in a new era in the new world order, as we continue to report here. The ongoing leveling of Lebanon continues. That's why I don't see how we can possibly have a peace deal, with Iran saying they will not leave Hezbollah or Lebanon hung out to dry. So I don't see how any of this is going to amount to a peace deal. We'll take a look. The genocide in Gaza continues, and the leveling, ethnic cleansing genocide program in Lebanon continues. How can you have peace with all of this going on? We'll take a look at all of that and much more on this Friday edition of Weaponized News. Thank you for joining us. Shout out to Mac on the YouTube and his Substack channel. Mac wanted me to remind everybody that on PBS, I guess it's competing with Weaponized News here now. PBS is re-airing Buffalo Soldiers documentary, Buffalo Soldiers Fighting on Two Fronts. That is airing at the same time as this program, so probably worth a look, though, honestly. But keep tuned into Weaponized News, PBS Buffalo Soldiers. And then Mac had also sent me some documents about EU immigration plans that are I don't really have time to go through today, but we may circle back on Monday and take a look at this. So thank you, Mac, for those documents and the information about the Buffalo Soldiers documentary there on the PBS. Let's get to this day in history. On this day in history, we go back to the year 1381, where we saw peasants revolt, tax revolt. Where's all the tax revolts today, bro? Peasants revolt, English rebels arrive at Blackheath outside London. 14-year-old King Richard II retreats to safety of the Tower of London, facing a tax revolt on this day, 1381. On this day in 1665, England installs a municipal government in New York City here in America. In the New World, they do love their governmental systems, I tell you. On this day in 1714, Persia and Russia sign a secret treaty. Is Russia supplying Persia, modern day Iran, with weapons and intelligence capabilities to fight America and aardvark land? There are speculative reports out there saying as much. On this day in 1830, we saw the beginning of the French colonization of Algeria. 34,000 French soldiers land 27 kilometers west of Algiers in Sidi Ferrouch. And now Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump are seeking further colonization of Algeria with their bid for purchase of a private island off the coast there that we continue to cover. I think we do have a clip of it. Maybe they should just genocide the Algerians for Jared Kushner. That's also in the cards. May very well happen. On this day in, where are we at here now? On this day in 1849, the gas mask is patented by Lewis Hazlitt out of Louisville, Kentucky. A forerunner to World War I, massive expansion of chemical weapon use. The gas mask patented. On this day, 1849. On this day in 1860, we saw the State Bank of Russia, of the Russian Empire, is established. On this day in 1864, we saw the Battle of Trevelyan Station, the bloodiest and largest all-cavalry battle of the American Civil War, ends with a Confederate tactical victory and a Union successful retreat there in Virginia. Quite horrific battle there. On this day in 1902, we saw Horn Hardart open the first automat where food and drink are served through vending machines in the United States at 818 Chestnut Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now they want to automate everything. But first automat rolls out in 1902. On this day, 1923, on this day, Harry Houdini, the famous musician, frees himself from a straitjacket while suspending upside down 40 feet above the ground in New York City. Harry Houdini, with that illusion, pulled off on this day. In 1934, on this day, we're told they broke up Boeing. Black McKellar bill causes the breakup of William Boeing's empire in Boeing United Aircraft Technologies and United Airlines. They didn't break up any of these monopolies. They just spun them off into subsidiary companies, essentially. What a joke. All of the trust busting became sadly enough. On this day in 1937, we saw the Great Purge in the Soviet Union. After a one-day show trial, 8 Soviet generals are sentenced to death and executed by the NKVD there in the Soviet Union on this day, 1937. 1964, on this day, Nelson Mandela is sentenced to life in prison for sabotage in South Africa. On this day in 1968, Rosemary's Baby premieres. U.S. premiere of horror film Rosemary's Baby, based on Ira Levin's best-selling novel. So everybody should watch Rosemary's Baby, and they do illustrate the dark occult in there very well, and they lay out a satanic cult and how they're manipulating a large group of people to go along with Rosemary's Baby. Everybody should check out that film. Gives you some insights into the dark occult. 1987, on this day, we saw then U.S. President Ronald Reagan challenge Mikhail Gorbachev of the Soviet Union to, quote, tear down the Berlin Wall. On this day in the year 2007, Putin, the most evil man in the world, gives a Russian state prize of the Russian Federation to novelist and historian Alexander Solzhenitsyn for his humanitarian work. And that's a great, every time Alexander Solzhenitsyn is in on this day in history, it's always a great segue to plug his shirt that we have at weaponizednews.com/shop. Here's the shirt. You can see right there, famous quote by Alexander Solzhenitsyn regarding the corrupt Soviet government. We know they are lying. They know they are lying. They know we know they are lying. We know they know we know they are lying, but they are still lying. Alexander Solzhenitsyn there. And you could apply the same to American government, to all governments, actually. All-time classic there. Solzhenitsyn. Get the t-shirt at weaponizednews.com/shop. Continuing here, on this day in 2009, U.S. television broadcasts switched from analog NTSC to digital ATSC transmission. 2013, on this day, Russia passes a law banning gay propaganda. And on this day in 2016, we saw a gunman claiming allegiance to the Islamic State open fire at a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida, killing 49 and injuring another 53. Worst mass shooting in the U.S. I remember that. Pretty crazy stuff there. And on this day in our civil liberties history, we go back to the year 1963. Mississippi civil rights leader Medgar Evers shot and killed. Mississippi civil rights leader Medgar Evers was shot and killed on this day by Byron De La Beckwith, a member of the racist White Citizens Council. Evers was the field secretary for the NAACP in Mississippi. The assassination occurred just hours after President John F. Kennedy nationally televised a speech on the day before, June 11, 1963, calling for a federal civil rights law. All white juries twice failed to convict De La Beckwith of the murder. The case was reopened in the 1990s. However, De La Beckwith was convicted of murder in February of 1994. And here's our segue to the news. CNN compiled dozens of moments where Trump says that the U.S. and Iran war, deal's very close, and that's where we're at today. It's very close, bro, but they're still leveling Lebanon. So how do you square that circle? I don't know.
We have major points of agreement. They want to make a deal, and we are very willing to make a deal.
Well, I think we're going to end it. I can't tell you for sure. Well, they want to make a deal so badly. You have no idea how badly they want to make a deal.
They want to make a deal so badly. I do see a deal in Iran. We were very close to a deal.
I think it's close to over, yeah. I view it as very close to over.
It's looking very good that we're going to make a deal with Iran, and it's going to be a good deal. This process should go very quickly. We're going to end that war very quickly. They want to make a deal so badly. We think we're close to a deal, and that's okay. We're in the final throes of what will be a very, very good deal.
Today makes 39 times that he has said something like that.
We're on day 105 of the Iran war. It would be comical if it wasn't so tragic. On the back of all this is engineered global famine. I don't think about America's financial situation. Doesn't just ignore Americans. Trump entertains them as they drowned. Thank you. Here's the meme of the day from Free Thought Project, Jason Bassler. Americans are entrenched in financial stress amid debt and financial pressures. Trump's grand sporting season begins with UFC fights on the White House lawn. We're at the let them eat cake and fiddle while Rome burns part of the movie here now. Here's an elephant at the Texas GOP convention peeing on the floor. This is what the Republicans have in store for the midterms. So very symbolic of the Republicans and the grand old party. Here's more propaganda and lies from Hunter Biden on his father, then president, Joe Biden, pardoning him. And remember, Trump has said he's going to pardon his entire administration. So basically, run hog wild with crimes. It doesn't matter because Trump will pardon you, is the message he sent to all the criminals in his administration. The same message sent by the Biden administration. It doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal. That's all fake. Government is a crime syndicate, and they have all these people running around chasing red and blue hats while they steal as much as they possibly can and murder with impunity.
Time of day or night. And it would have been like having a gun to my family's head for the next 4 years at least. And so that's why he pardoned me. I mean, it's a really incredibly rational decision, and it was a really difficult decision. And you know how proud of my dad I am? Is the fact of the matter is he chose me over his legacy. Because no matter what you say, that's going to be one of the first things that is written about him. And that's how, I say to people, that's how much my dad loves me.
No, come on.
He chose me over his political legacy.
I'm going to cry. I'm going to tear up. Well, Trump's doing the same thing, MAGA. There's no end. They have no shame. They're now exploiting our military, as per usual, to try to recruit and profiteer off the back of Trump's 80th birthday, Freedom 250 UFC fight. Bread and circuses, absurdity, anyone here? This Sunday night during the historic Freedom 250 UFC fight at the White House, the Department of War will debut their first TV ad entitled Peace Through Strength. Here it is. I mean, can we get? It's just beyond the pale of disgusting. Exploiting our troops. Here's the ad they're going to run. The recruitment ad to go ahead and sign up to go die in another illegal foreign war of aggression. All wars are bankers' wars. Wars are racket.
America's military is unmatched. Rejecting power, denying passage to adversaries, and protecting our interests in the time and place of our future. America is free. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars we end. And perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. It's called peace through strength. States of America, we will hunt you down. We will find you. Decisively, devastatingly, and without remorse. God bless you. God bless our armed forces. God bless our men and women serving overseas. And God bless the United States of America.
War.gov. That's going to be the commercial. Peace through strength. What an Orwellian statement. Vice President J.D. Vance says, I'm seeing a lot of fake information about a potential deal to reopen the strait and end Iran's nuclear weapons program. First, the Iranians are not receiving any cash and no funds are being released for simply signing a deal or attending a meeting. The deal is structured to ensure that the United States and its allies' concerns are prioritized, and that if the Islamic Republic of Iran meets its obligations, then economic benefits will flow to them and the entire region. This deal has the potential to remake the region and lead to lasting peace. I've noticed a couple of bizarre things in the reporting over the last few hours. First, people who rightly said Donald Trump was a historic president a month ago, now criticizing a deal based on unconfirmed media reports. Second, people who say you can't trust a word said by the IRGC, who apparently believe anonymously sourced social media posts. The president is going to get us a good outcome one way or another. Trump posted this. The terms that Iran leaked out to the fake news have nothing to do with the terms that were agreed to in writing. What they said, including their weak and pathetic statement on having a deal, bears no relation to the truth. Very dishonorable people to deal with. With them, there is no such thing as dealing in good faith. Amazing. Also, they're totally rebuffed drone attack last night against Indian ships leaving the Strait of Hormuz is totally unacceptable. What? We attacked Indian ship. We're going to get to that later in the show here. So Iran state media agency IRNA reports that the draft U.S.-Iran memorandum is primarily designed to end the regional war and establish a 60-day framework for negotiating a broader final agreement. Number one, the nuclear issue remains untouched. No agreement on the nuclear file is included in the current memorandum, and Iran makes no new commitments. Nuclear talks will take place during the 60-day period following the signing. Strait of Hormuz, no transfer of control, no U.S. role. Iran makes no commitment regarding the transfer of management of the Strait of Hormuz. The future administration of the strait will be handled as a regional matter and resolved through dialogue and joint discussion making between Tehran and Oman. A definitive end to the war on all fronts, including Lebanon. The primary goal of the memorandum is to end the war across all regional fronts. The United States commits to forcing Aardvarkland to end the war in Lebanon. And the phrase extension of the ceasefire does not appear anywhere in the text. Release of frozen assets through a defined mechanism. Part of Iran's frozen assets will be released immediately after the signing, with the remainder to be gradually unfrozen over the course of negotiations. Tehran has received clear guarantees based on mechanisms of its own choosing. War reparations are on the agenda. Compensation for damage inflicted on Iran during the U.S. Aardvarkland war of aggression is among the issues referenced in the memorandum. The mechanism for obtaining reparations will be agreed upon during the 60-day negotiations following the signing. Details of lifting primary and secondary sanctions to be addressed in the final agreement. The lifting of all U.S. sanctions and international resolutions will be examined during the 60-day period of nuclear negotiations. 3 issues and 60 days for a final agreement. Only 3 issues will be discussed during the 60 days negotiation period. The continuation of Iran's peaceful nuclear program, the lifting of unilateral U.S. sanctions, and the mechanism for compensating damages. No other subjects, including Iran's missile capabilities, will be on the agenda. Hashtag we won the war 39 times, brother. Love it, Trump. Love it. Iran's foreign minister, Odysee, said earlier today, Islamabad memorandum of understanding with the United States has never been closer, urging media to refrain from entering speculation about its content until it is finalized, and pledging that all details will be shared with the public in due course. Is it even worth it? We got the 14-point draft. I'm not even going to read it to you. Hell, you can look it up and see, because they're negotiating it as we speak. So it may change, but it seems like a major sticking point is Lebanon. This bastard, international war criminal, former Secretary of Defense or War over there in Aardvarkland, Gallant, says, where is the uranium keeping that psyop going? Well, it's in Aardvarkland, bro. I think he knows. But he had to do his little part there to keep this psyop going. Pakistani Prime Minister says U.S.-Iran deal closer than ever as Aardvarkland war chief demands freedom to bomb Iran. And so then there you have it. I don't see how we can possibly have a peace deal as long as Aardvarkland continues its indiscriminate bombing campaigns. Pakistani Prime Minister Sharif announced earlier today that intensive mediation efforts are underway to secure a final U.S.-Iran agreement, while warning of those who want to sabotage the peace deal, and affirming that a deal has never been this close. Amid ongoing intense mediation efforts by Pakistan, we are fully aware of insistent misinformation campaigns being waged by those who want to sabotage the peace deal. Aardvarkland War Minister Aardvark Katz demanded in a statement a short while before Sharif put out this statement that Tel Aviv retain freedom of military action against Iran as part of any ceasefire deal. Quoting him now, Aardvarkland must ensure that in the future as well, we retain the ability to act independently to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. He added, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and I have instructed the Aardvarkland military to prepare accordingly. He also said that U.S. President Donald Trump is leading efforts toward an agreement with Iran based on American interests, including the shared interest with Aardvarkland of preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. He stressed Aardvarkland will not withdraw from Lebanon, Syria, Gaza, and the northern West Bank, while adding that Tel Aviv expects Trump to get Iran to give up its long-range missiles and support for its regional allies during negotiations. How's that? I don't see any of that happening here now, honestly. We have Argachai saying they're not, where's that? They put out a statement. They're not going to leave Lebanon hung out to dry. Let's see, continuing here. Yeah, Pakistani Prime Minister. Aardvarkland must retain freedom to strike Iran to stop nuclear program, Katz says. Huh? Again, Aardvarkland War Minister Katz says Aardvarkland will not withdraw from Lebanon, Syria, Gaza, and the northern West Bank. Aardvarkland can't meme either. They put out this giant wall of text. I'm not going to read it all to you, but that's the gist of it. They're not going to capitulate to anything. So I don't see how there's going to be a deal here, but we shall hope and pray that there is a deal. But as soon as there is a deal, they're just going to attack again. So until America can get its bulldog over there, Aardvarkland, on a leash, this will continue by all accounts. Now, a lot of hopium being floated out there, and I hope it's true, and they stand down, but they're saying they're not going to. So the genocide, ethnic cleansing program for the Greater Aardvarkland Project, the square that was a circle, will continue, according to Aardvarkland Katz, Secretary of Defense or War there. At least we control the Strait of Hormuz? No, not so much. Maybe. U.S. Central Command put out this post earlier today. They say the U.S. Navy warships and air assets continue to patrol regional waters, enforcing the blockade against Iran. As of today, U.S. forces have redirected 136 commercial vessels and disabled 9 to ensure compliance. They put out 2 posts about that. They're very proud. 2 different posts. The U.S. Central Command has redirected 139 compliant commercial ships and disabled 9 non-compliant vessels since April 13th. So they're very proud of that fact at U.S. Central Command. Iran's foreign minister, Argachai, on the Strait of Hormuz, he says the future of the Strait of Hormuz will never be like the past. The services provided in the future will no longer be free, and this will be established in the agreement. The issue of collecting tolls is not acceptable, but collecting fees for services is completely. It's not tolls, it's fees for services. It's environmental fees, you see. There will be costs here, and fees must be paid, he said. Aardvarkland's Air Force 157th Squadron, responsible for electronic warfare, appears to have taken a hit by Iranian strikes at Ramat David Air Base in northern Aardvarkland. So looks like they did whack them right there pretty good in this latest rounds. Right there, it's appearing reportedly that that's the case. That was from Bike and Merchant OSINT. A bunch of those guys running around. All right. Odysee says as soon as the final stages, that's our Iran foreign minister, says as soon as the final stages of negotiations are completed, the agreement will be signed and announced. The initial signing will take place remotely in digital format. This could happen within the next few days. Odysee says we will never leave Hezbollah in Lebanon alone, and the end of the war will also encompass Lebanon and all other fronts. How do you reconcile, how do you square this circle, right? That's what we're going to find out. U.S. military planners are discussing contingency plans to help secure and remove Iran's enriched uranium if a nuclear deal is reached. According to U.S. officials, the preliminary plans would involve Department of Energy specialists supported by U.S. troops and other agencies locating, securing, and transporting Iran's nuclear materials. Officials stressed that no operation has been approved and that the discussions are part of routine military planning, report out of ZBS News. And there's a bunch of reports, oh, we were going to do a super secret mission and go do that, but Trump decided better against it. Really? Again, it's just so freaking draining here now with the majority of media acting obtuse to the fact U.S. intelligence said Iran is not a direct nuclear threat to America. It's not an imminent threat. And the State Department said the reason we're attacking Iran is in defense of Aardvarkland and U.S. self-defense in the region. It's straight up, but we got to keep playing these games as if Iran's nuclear they're going to nuke us in 2 weeks, bro. Same routine from Netanyahu. Segue to Shadow President of America, Bibi, says, as long as I am the Prime Minister of Aardvarkland, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. President Trump and I are in complete agreement on this issue. For more than 30 years, I've been lying and spinning this tale, trying to get somebody to bomb Iran. No, I added that part. For more than 30 years, I have been at the forefront of the international struggle against Iran's nuclear program. Were it not for this struggle, Iran would have long ago possessed atomic bombs to destroy Aardvarkland. Iran is working to destroy the Aardvark state, and I have dedicated my life to preventing them from doing so. As long as I am Prime Minister of Aardvarkland, that will not happen. They've been spinning this propaganda and lies for 30 years. You got to be kidding me how anybody could believe this, but yet we're on day 105 of the Iran war behind these lies. More reporting on that in the geopolitical section American maxing. How about American scamming, scheming, and rip-offs, con jobs? That's really what MAGA and the Trump White House are all about these days. Meme of the day out of the White House, patriotic summer. Really? The most corrupt administration in the history of America, and that's saying something? Yeah. Re-gilding of the massive arts of war sculptures located between the Lincoln Memorial and site of the Triumphal Arch rapidly continues. The sculptures will be fully re-gilded by July 3rd. Trump put out this post, putting, as we reported, gilding all of the statues there in D.C. with his gold plate to make everything gaudy and probably part of some occult ritual, as well as we worship our idols there. Trump and his golden statues and horses now displayed around Washington, D.C. for America 250. On to the bioweapons program. Here's Raggedy Ann, if you can remember her, lying criminal press secretary lady for Biden, where she said there was no nuclear program, is declassified today by Tulsi Gabbard out of the Director of National Intelligence Office. We'll get to that report, but here's little lion Raggedy Ann circling back to tell us one more lie.
Russia has a history also of inventing outright lies like this, which is the suggestion that the United States has a chemical and biological weapons program, or Ukraine does, that they're operating. Russia is the country that has a chemical and biological weapons program. So the objective was to make clear the inaccuracy of the information, the misinformation they're trying to put out, and make clear to the world that they not only have the capacity, they have a history of using chemical and biological weapons, and that in this moment we should have our eyes open for that possibility. Today,
So that was Raggedy Ann from Biden's White House. Here's outgoing Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard today. And no one gets in trouble from the Biden administration for the never-ending stream of lies, like no one will get in trouble from the Trump administration for the never-ending stream of lies.
After months of searching through intelligence community holdings and files, today I'm releasing new evidence of long-standing U.S. government funding of more than 120 biolabs in over 30 countries. Now, these biolabs include labs in places like Ukraine, which could be at risk of compromise due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, the intelligence community had previously warned that a US-funded biolab in Ukraine likely housed dangerous pathogens and remained vulnerable to long-standing threats of Russian attack, seizure, or damage. Now, until now, evidence regarding the full existence and funding of these laboratories had been knowingly withheld from you, the American people. Many of these US government-funded biolabs are currently or have previously engaged in research using hazardous and highly contagious pathogens, and in some cases included dangerous gain-of-function research with very little visibility or oversight. Now, President Trump clearly understands the serious threat dangerous gain-of-function research poses to the American people. And this is why he took decisive action over a year ago. On May 25th, 2025, he signed an executive order to end federal funding of gain-of-function research around the world. Here at ODNI, I issued new guidance to the intelligence community directing increased collection on these laboratories and facilities overseas. And we're already seeing the results of this increased collection. We're learning new details, for example, on clinical trials that are underway at these facilities and that are raising significant ethical, financial, and security concerns regarding the supposed public health initiatives and U.S. national security. Now, despite the obvious potential for catastrophic global impact that research on dangerous pathogens in biolabs can have, politicians and so-called health professionals like Dr. Fauci as well as entities within the Biden administration's national security team, lied repeatedly to the American people about the existence of US-funded and supported biolabs. Not only did they lie, they threatened those who attempted to expose the truth. So this release today breaks new ground, as the information surrounding the existence, history, locations, and funding of these US-funded biolabs has been intentionally covered up by very powerful people who falsely claimed that these biolabs didn't exist. Now, they accuse anyone who says otherwise to be foreign assets and traitors to America. Now, Odie and I will continue working closely with partners across the US government to identify exactly where these labs are and what pathogens they contain, to end dangerous gain-of-function research that threatens the health and well-being of the American people and people around the world.
Why doesn't Fauci and the rest of the crew ever get in trouble? They were violating international law. Here's the press release. DNI Gabbert reveals evidence of U.S. taxpayer-funded global biolab program. Why does no one get in trouble? After months of searching through intelligence community holdings and files, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard is revealing new evidence of long-standing United States government funding for more than 120 biolabs in over 30 countries. These biolabs include labs in Ukraine, which may be at risk of compromise due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Yeah, we have a schizophrenic foreign policy. We'll get to more of that. Here's the 4-page PDF laying all this out. The Institute of Experimental and Clinical Veterinary Medicine in Kharkov there probably houses at least some dangerous pathogens and almost certainly remains vulnerable to long-standing Russian information operations, seizure, or damage. Ukraine, over 40 labs built and supported. There they are on the map. You could see storage of bioweapon pathogens from Soviet era, U.S. training for Ukrainian scientists to work in biocontainment, especially dangerous pathogen certification, repository of bioweapons and disease-causing pathogens, anthrax, Malaria, tuberculosis, swine flu, Newcastle's disease, MERS, SARS, Marburg, Ebola, Lassa, and the plague, rickettsia, etc. Pick your deadly pathogen. They're cooking it up at these biolabs. You can see the different safety levels there. And they said, yeah, just wear a paper mask. Everything will be fine, right? Sure. Example, information, U.S. built the following labs in Ukraine. And so you can see right here, we poured in millions and millions, 1.7 million, 2.1 million, 3.4, almost 5 million there, 1.9 million there. So we poured in a whole hell of a lot of money into these biolabs there in Ukraine, where you were called a traitor to America if you brought this up. How about the people calling you a traitor are the traitors, and we arrest their asses? How about that, DNI? Ukraine Lab's web of connections to U.S. bioweapon defense industry. And so the heads of all these places should be arrested like now. Now, that's not going to happen. But here are a sample of your conspirators, part of the Ukrainian Scientific Collaborator Network, right here, looking to cook up the next bat times that we all know and love and enjoyed. All right here they are. They're people running these programs. Go arrest them all and end this insanity. Of course, that will never happen, but that's what needs to happen. The U.S. paid Ukrainian scientists to study the genome of highly pathogenic avian flu, bird flu, anybody, and other highly infectious viruses in biocontainment labs, which were also paid for by the United States government, i.e., you and I, American taxpayers, paying for them to cook up bioweapons and then attack us. Isn't it also wonderful, the problem, reaction, solution dialectic? Anything for public health and our safety, and major profiteering from the solution, the miracle that doesn't even work. So there you go. Just the corruption is legion. Here's your evidence from the Director of National Intelligence, and still no one gets in trouble. They ran the old UFO psyop today again. They just keep on, and nobody cares. They're like, yeah, right, bro. You know what I mean? Yeah, right, bro. So Trump put this out briefly and then deleted it. He keeps running psyops. Really, Trump's with Aryan Nordic aliens. Now, this is a part of a psyop that they're running on the American people, and it's truly disgusting. The Department of War publishes third release of unidentified anomalous phenomenon files. They put that out today. I guess we should take a look at it. Does anybody even care at this point? They've released some secret documents. There's orbs in the sky we should be concerned about, of course. Let's take a look. Here's the UFO files third tranche released today. They're getting a lot of hits, they say. So as the unprecedented levels of interest in both this topic and the Trump administration's historic transparency effort continues, war.gov/UFO has received over 1.7 billion hits worldwide since its launch on May 8, 2026. The Department of War and our agency partners are actively working on the next release of UAP files. So they're just going to keep with a slow drip here now. And when it's time for a distraction, here's some UFO files, children. I want to believe. The Department of War just released the third tranche of records. Let's take a look at the third tranche here. I guess we start here. Forensic sketch interview from, what's this? Redacted from July, some date, redacted day, 2024. Whole lot of redactions, i.e. Epstein files. Forensic sketch interview. And so it's hard to even get what they're saying here. This is an interview about a UAP encounter, as you can see there, being actively observed over Cheyenne Mountain, and you can see a lot of it redacted out there as per usual. The transparency. This image is an artistic interpretation of a 2002 incident potentially involving unidentified anomalous phenomenon, UAP, reported near Colorado Springs, Colorado. That's where a giant military, U.S. military base is, right? Sure. This image is derived from firsthand narrative description contained in FBI UAP D002, and they go through the serial numbers on this report there. So that's an artistic interpretation. Well, I'm convinced of alien life now. More redactions here. I just can't with the redactions, honestly. Full transparency, more redactions here for our own safety, of course, because they're telling us the truth about the UFOs. Declassified authority derived from FBI automatic declassification, May 24, 2007. I'm convinced here, bro. You know what I mean? In October 2024, at approximately 1851 local time in the northeastern United States, an eyewitness observed a light source below the horizon hovering above a pond at an estimated distance of 2,700 feet. Well, geez, I'm convinced now with this. Jeez. These orbs, and I think they did put out a video of this one, but in July of last year, 2025, so what, like a year ago, almost, at approximately 2100 local time in the eastern United States, northeastern United States, an eyewitness observed an intense bright light in their backyard as they parked their car upon returning home from work. Well, yeah, I mean, give up your religion over this. That's what Steven Spielberg says, right? And in this highly transparent document, oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow. An airborne object over Cheyenne Mountain in February of 2022 was possible backscattering of sunlight. This has got to be mockery here, right? Another declassified document. The White House Situation Room, Washington, D.C. Yeah. Very convincing. Top secret from 1949. Was this Roswell? This file contains an evaluation study of the phenomenon flying saucers, prepared at the request of the Plans and Operations Division of the General Staff, U.S. Army, to determine if the origin could be traced to natural phenomenon or activities of a foreign power. More major redactions, and that's it. So yeah, I'm convinced here now of the ETs, obviously by these redacted documents released by the Department of War earlier today, and artist renditions of what a UFO may have looked like, and those bright lights in the sky. All right, friends, let's take our live commercial break here now. Thank you for sticking with me for the first hour of Weaponized News. Give me that like, share, subscribe, push that notification button. We just blasted through an hour of hardcore news commercial free. Go to weaponizednews.com/shop. Get yourself a holograph sticker. You can see all the colors of the rainbow for this June Pride Month. If you don't like that, you can get a white background Weaponized News sticker and the clear sticker. weaponizednews.com/shop. Get yourself a sticker over there. We have t-shirts, baseball caps, coffee mugs, shot glasses. Again, trigger warning, this show may cause heavy bouts of drinking. Go to weaponizednews.com/shop. Get yourself a shot glass over there. Check out our gear. We also take donations, help support independent reporting and analysis, brought to you 5 days a week at Weaponized News, broadcasting live 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern time. We take donations. Buy me a coffee Bitcoin wallet address. Cash App links are all in the description below this video. If you ever miss out on Weaponized News because of whatever issue on one of these channels, links to all of our channels that we're broadcasting on are in the description below this video. Odds are, unless they take out the power grid and flip the kill switch on the internet, we will be broadcasting live on one of those channels. All of those are very real possibilities as well. Maybe a solar flare for all we know. But barring any of these catastrophes, we will be broadcasting on one of our channels in the links below. Become a Weaponized News paid subscriber at Weaponized News Substack. Over there, we're streaming live on Substack. You get a summary of the show, and you get links to almost everything we talk about here now for documentation and further research purposes. Weaponized News Substack. I give everything away for free, nothing behind a paywall. Your patronage to the store, your donations, your subscriptions are to show support for the efforts. And thank you to everybody out there that has supported the efforts as we continue to grow organically on basically a zero, as Dan Bongino's $0 advertising budget. So I do appreciate the listeners out there. Give me that like, share, subscribe, and pushing that notification button. With your help, we can grow and continue to get the word out. All right. Thank you for bearing with me through that live commercial break. Weaponizednews.com/shop. The links to everything I just talked about are in the description below this video. Welcome back to the second half of Weaponized News on this Friday, June 12th, 2026 edition. Now we're going to take a look. We're going to take a look at this claim. And again, no one's in trouble. Just government crimes against us are legion. No one gets in trouble. Here's another one. The Trump administration claims they've located 146,000 unaccompanied illegal alien children who crossed the southern border, many of whom were trafficked, abused, and exploited. Mayorkas should be in prison along with a bunch of other Biden officials, Biden-era officials, we'll say. A bunch of NGOs, nonprofits, they should all be in prison for allowing this to happen. We get 3 illegal alien criminal scumbags, and that's who freaking DHS and FBI pointed the finger at yesterday. Give me a break. They're bad. They need to go to prison. But what about who's at top in positions of authority that allowed this to happen in the first place? None of them ever see any justice whatsoever. Let's watch this report. Again, they're claiming 146,000 unaccompanied illegal alien children. That's quite a few children here now.
The Trump administration coming to the rescue of unaccompanied migrant children abandoned, abused, and exploited after they were trafficked across the southern border under President Biden. The Department of Homeland Security revealing it has located about 146,000 minors so far, most of them in sanctuary cities. And Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche wants to crack down on the human smugglers who brought many of them here. Fox News Sunday anchor Shannon Bream with us now. Good to see you, Shannon.
That's all well and good, but again, government had to, they were profiteering off this. They're part of the human trafficking. For God's sake, it's still going on. Give me a freaking break. FIFA World Cup, a major, as all of these big sporting events are major human trafficking events as well. FIFA World Cup 2026 is a challenge, but an incredible opportunity to show America and the world that this FBI will be at their best. I hope they don't pull a false flag attack at this World Cup. That was a post by, I can't look you straight, Kash Patel, director of the FBI, winner of the gold medal for Epstein file cover-ups. Yeah, the World Cup, giant police state. They got the robot dogs. They got drones, facial recognition. Covered it yesterday. Last few days, we covered it with Ruckus yesterday. More than 400 law enforcement agencies now are being tasked with security for the World Cup across 11 U.S. cities. FEMA has awarded $625 million to all 11 cities to fund operational exercises, staff background checks, cybersecurity defense, and beefed up police and emergency response at the World Cup venues. They're normalizing the high-tech police state to go see a soccer game. It's all major public events here now. They got the drones, you get the shakedown because you're a potential terrorist. Epstein files here. Director reported on this yesterday, but again, it's a lot of kids, right? Director of the Department of Homeland Security, Mullen, on rescuing the hundreds of thousands of missing children brought into the United States under Biden. Why is Mayorkas not in prison right now?
I haven't quit smiling since I've been Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, but I have to take that back because when we start digging into these cases and you start hearing the absolute horrific things that took place underneath the Biden administration, under true neglect at best and criminal at worst, to allow 450,000 kids to go missing throughout this country. President Trump has made it a point to go find these kids. And because of our partnership with HHS and DOJ, Department of Homeland Security, truly using the best, which the Democrats sometimes want to demonize because a lot of times this is ICE, this is HSI, this is CBP. These individuals that the Democrats seem to want to defund, but because of President Trump, we finally funded them for 3 years. We're able to push and go find these kids. We found 146,000 kids so far. 146,000 kids. We still have nearly 300,000 missing. We're investigating reports to where some of these kids claim that they were raped 600 to 700 times. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you have kids, if you don't have kids. I don't care if you're a liberal, you're independent, you're a Democrat, you're a Republican. If you can't stand for law enforcement to go find these kids, who are?
I can't stand that no one in a position of authority in the government that allowed this to happen in the first place will be held accountable, is what I can't stand. It's still ongoing. Give me a freaking break. It's ongoing. Epstein file cover-ups continues here now. Trump took out the Epstein Republicans, but not his Epstein problem. So what's up with Boebert? I guess Boebert's the only one still hanging around. Trump's targeting Boebert too. So the big four Republicans that voted to release the Epstein files, the Epstein Transparency Act, right, that voted to pass it in Congress, Massey, Nancy Mace, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Lauren Boebert. Massey, Nancy Mace, MTG, all out. Boebert's the last one left, and Trump is already targeting her. So, yeah, Trump's going to go after. And that's like your core original MAGA base of Trump supporters are those four Republicans. And, hey, you voted for the Epstein Files Transparency Act, you're out because it exposes Trump and his whole crew of Epsteiners. That's where we're at with this. And Let's hear this report. They're trying to, and I see it out there in the quote right-wing alternative media. They're trying to whitewash old JD Vance image right now, trying to sanitize him away from Trump. He's the rational guy in the room. He's the conspiracy guy that actually makes sense. Not so much. He's Mr. Technocracy installed into the Trump administration by Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. So don't buy the whitewashing of who and what JD Vance is. He is Mr. Technocracy. Make no mistake about it.
A bombshell investigative report out of the New York Times detailing the long-running issues in the Epstein scandal, which caused an internal freakout at the Trump White House. This reporting is actually through the process that we've sometimes seen before, where journalists who work at an outlet on a daily sort of beat also work on longer form projects and books. And so the reporting is, we should mention, part of an upcoming book by several of the top sort of Trump White House reporters and DC reporters on the beat. And they, in this process, actually say they spoke to over 1,000 sources. So this is more than even just one or two big articles. This is drawing off of all of that, and it reports how the Trump White House officials and administration looked at the Epstein scandal as so serious. Top officials were gathering in the White House Situation Room. That is, of course, the secure bunker where classified high-stakes national security matters are discussed. For contrast, it's not a place where you deal with political domestic spin. It's where this historic moment occurred, where President Obama and Vice President Biden were tracking, along with the national security team, the ongoing operation to take out and kill Osama bin Laden.
That's total, complete bullshit, but okay.
And that was 2011. That's the Situation Room, at least when used by presidents who take it seriously. The Times, knowing the Trump officials used it to try to gain measure of control over a very different kind of crisis threatening to engulf the presidency. They continue to use the situation for those discussions. The Times reports that by summer 25, the Situation Room itself had become basically inseparable from the Epstein crisis. This is more than a matter of staging. It sort of tells you about the use, abuse, and misplaced priorities, according to critics.
Yeah, because the Trump administration is the Epstein administration. All these people have seen the tapes Epstein made of children being abused. He had cameras in every room. That's how he rose to power. There you go. They all know damn well. They all know damn well right there what's going on now, don't they? Here's a short clip from Joe Rogan.
Sometimes it's like you just get fed up. You're like, where the fuck are these Epstein files?
Yeah.
Who the fuck is this? Why is this redacted? Yeah. Where is it? Who the fuck killed JFK?
Right.
Like, come out with it. What the fuck? Who fucking killed Charlie Kirk for real?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? Why is that fucking story so clouded in mystery? And why did they pave over the fucking ground right after the shooting? What the fuck is going on there?
See, now you're making me in a bad mood.
It's easy to do. Sometimes it's.
There's reports today, I think it was Tucker put out a report that Trump was actually ordered the cover up of his alleged assassination attempt there in Butler, Pennsylvania. What the F's going on with that? Well, we shouldn't care about any of that because Elon Musk, Mr. Con Man, is going to save humanity by going to the stars, is the world's first trillionaire, and we should all celebrate the greatest con man the world's ever seen, Elon Musk. So ridiculous. They rigged it up, hyped it up, rigged all the rules. So now Elon Musk is the world's first trillionaire. Thankfully enough. Let's hear a word from the world's first trillionaire, still spinning schemes, scams, and frauds about interplanetary space travel.
They were simply not pursuing the technology that's necessary to make life multiplanetary, to make Star Trek, to make the exciting futures that we've read about real. And that's what SpaceX is all about, is to take the fiction out of science fiction and create an exciting, inspiring future for everyone. We want to be able to take anyone who wants to go to the moon, anyone who wants to go to Mars, or anyone in the solar system, and maybe beyond the solar system at some point. We want to be able to take you there. Not just a few astronauts. I mean, literally you. If you watch, whoever you are watching this, SpaceX wants to be able to take you to the moon, take you to Mars.
Yeah, they never provided any evidence that'll satisfy me that man ever went to the moon. So give me a friggin' break. There may be a secret. I don't discount that there may be a secret program, but what they're telling us publicly doesn't add up for those that care to look into it regarding the moon landing. Musk wrote to Jeffrey Epstein on December 25th, 2013, when should we head to your island on the 2nd? Epstein had told him 10 days earlier, always space for you, SpaceX. This was earlier today, but here's that email in the Epstein files between Elon Musk. He didn't get his name redacted there. Always space for you on Epstein Island, Elon, according to Epstein. SpaceX is now America's 6th most valuable public company at the close of the market today. SpaceX raised $75 billion in its NASDAQ IPO. That's more than all 38 other IPOs the NASDAQ has seen this year combined. That's a report from Unusual Whales. On the X, SpaceX finished up today 19% at $160.95 a share. Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley are each projected to earn over $100 million in fees from the SpaceX IPO. That's a report from the Wall Street Journal. So the big bank fraudsters, scammers are set to profiteer handsomely off selling you this load of bullshit science fiction, as per usual. A federal judge has stopped the Trump administration from proceeding with the $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund. That's a report out of the Wall Street Journal. Trump set up J6ers. They refuse to face that reality, but that is the reality. Trump set up Americans to be the dupes on January 6th. Sam Bankman-Fried fraud from FTX fame. Crypto fraudster has lost his appeal to overturn his fraud conviction and 25-year prison sentence, Bloomberg reports. America has a credit card problem. It is 2008 all over again. Report out of USA Today. American consumers are falling behind on their credit cards at levels not seen since the Great Recession. They never fixed the banking system since 2008, since all of their fraud then. No banker of any significance went to jail, and they didn't fix the system. So here we are today. Shocking, I know. Roughly 13% of the nation's credit card balance was at least 90 days delinquent in the first quarter of this year, according to a report from the New York Federal Reserve Bank. The nation's collective credit card balance stands at $1.25 trillion, just below its historic peak. Yeah, you got to go into debt to afford to live in this golden age of Trumponomics here now, with raging inflation and dollar devaluation, a staple of the market. The national debt is raising borrowing costs for everyone. This is a report out of the failed Atlantic magazine. Fiscal hawks like to drum up interest in the national debt by making the astronomical numbers more tangible. The United States owes $31.6 trillion to public creditors, more than $290,000 for each household. That's you and I. So I'm glad the U.S. government, with their never-ending wars, never-ending funding of bioweapons labs around the world, name the evil that they fund. I'm glad they put all that on our back while we're trying to afford groceries. It's good of them, isn't it? Vote harder in the midterms, bro. If we just get the right guy in there, it's going to turn it all around. World's food supply imperiled by Iran war, fertilizer manufacturer Fertiglobe chief says. Yeah, it's already been forecast by the United Nations and other aid groups that millions in the third and fourth world will starve to death because of the Iran war, because of the closure of Strait of Hormuz and essential goods passing through there, i.e. fertilizer and other agricultural inputs, pushing tens of millions of people in the third and fourth worlds into abject poverty. They may very well starve to death as well. Don't forget. It's been a long week. What was this, Wednesday or Tuesday? Trump says, I love the inflation. After consumer price index hits 3-year high. And they lie and say it's 4.2%. That's the official annual inflation rate. I'd say quadruple it. We're looking at 16%, probably even higher than that over here on Main Street to buy groceries, to buy your everyday staple goods. Let's look at the AAA national average for the price of a gallon of gasoline. And it's on a steady downtrend, still above the $4 threshold, down about 2 cents from yesterday upon Peace Talk news. We're still at $4.11 on average for the price of a gallon of gasoline across America, according to AAA, as you can see right here. And I'd say down about 2 cents from yesterday, where it was it's $14.13 a gallon yesterday and $4.11 there, with some rounding today. And then everybody's favorite, actually my favorite here, because it has the fast moving numbers, but seriously, Brown University, the Watson School of International and Public Affairs, we're now up to, I thought we would click over to $48 billion today, but definitely tomorrow we will. The U.S. household burden across both gasoline and diesel since the beginning of the Iran war, starting on February 28, 2026, is $440.27 across both gasoline and diesel. And then the total consumer cost burden since the beginning of the war is now $47.7 billion. As you can see right here, it's the golden age. Yeah, they get it over there on the YouTube. The golden age is not being able to afford groceries or gasoline on the back of Trump's wars. We truly do appreciate the efforts there. But hey, get a $50 discount off of Ozempic on TrumpRx.gov if you're feeling hungry. Take your synthetic Gila monster venom. That can certainly help. We do appreciate Trump's efforts in those regards to help stave off hunger in America. Here's banker. Who's this guy? He's out of the Bank of England, isn't he? I believe so. International criminal banker, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canadians will be forced to be part of the, quote, next world order that will emerge from Europe. And so he talked a lot about it very candidly, actually, at the World Economic Forum, at the Munich Security Council, at the Global Governments Summit, that indeed we are in a new era. And all the bigwigs have been saying it for years. We've been reporting on it, very underreported. We're in a new era, a new world order. And then I remember Carney making comments laughing about the liberal world order that we were allegedly all the West was following for equality since World War II. He literally laughed about it and said, you think that's something? I remember all that reporting on it. So here he is about the next world order that Canada will be a party to, according to international banking criminal Carney.
And as the president mentioned a few weeks ago at the European political community in Yerevan, I was honored to attend, and I said at that meeting that I believe that the next world order will likely be built out of Europe, and Canada will be part of that effort. In security, as the first non-European member to join SAFE, as the president mentioned, under his leadership, Canada is a key member of the coalition of willing to support Ukraine. In critical minerals, working with Minister Lescure as a reliable supplier to our core European partners.
So that banker in Canada committed to the war effort against the Russians. We reported on this. Now he's in jail. This was a crazy story, if you could remember back. Former South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol. Remember this dude? This was crazy. Remember he was held up in his residence with government security, and then they rolled in other government security there in South Korea. It was a crazy, they had a couple weeks standoff, if I remember correctly. Anyhow, he's now been sentenced to 30 years in prison for authorizing drone flights over Pyongyang in 2024. Prosecutors argued the operation was intended to create a crisis that could justify his later declaration of martial law. That's what all this was about. Remember, he tried to declare martial law there in South Korea. The Seoul Central District Court found him guilty of abuse of power and aiding the enemy. Where's some of this action for justice out of American courts? Oh, never mind. The head of the DOJ, Todd Blanche, acting director. Now we got this other character, I guess. They're the Epstein file cover-uppers. So that's where our justice is coming out of the Department of Justice, being covered up. South Korea, they're putting their former president behind bars for 30 years, finding him guilty of abuse of power and aiding the enemy. DOJ, FBI, all you law enforcement authorities, there's a long line there in the District of Criminals, Washington, D.C., of politicians and bureaucrats and government workers that fit the bill for what South Korea has just exhibited, what justice actually looked like to the, quote, West. Go out and do the people's work and bring all these criminals to justice. Obviously, that'll never happen because it's all one and the same. The government is a crime syndicate. And so we will not see this type of justice here in America anytime soon, I fear. Here's India's foreign minister on our essentially American schizophrenic foreign policy. Says the United States specifically asked India to buy Russian oil to stabilize the world markets. We're in a proxy war via Ukraine with Russia. We're propping up the Russian war machine by telling India to buy Russian oil.
But I do want people to remember this. At that time, the US specifically asked India to buy Russian oil to stabilize the world markets. Okay? Right now, if you see, after having first put tariffs on us last year for buying Russian oil, the US then again lifted its sanctions
because
on Russian oil.
They need the oil price down again. Yeah.
So let's not pretend that there is some great principle involved here. I mean, if it is on, off, and do it when it suits us and don't do it when it doesn't suit us. I mean, come on, we are all the adults in the room. We know what the game is.
Russia-Ukraine war rages on here. The most evil man in the world, Putin, said Russia will intensify its retaliatory strikes to deter Ukrainian armed forces from attacking Russian civilian targets. Quite horrific. It continues there. Nobody helps Indian ship after Pentagon kills 3 Indians. Yeah, U.S. Central Command whacked this this Indian vessel in the Strait of Hormuz, killing 3 Indians.
Forget the missile which type of fire. Nobody's proceeding for the help. The guy who just
Nobody came to help him. What was that? Like 3 days ago, I believe, something like that, 2-3 days ago. India summons U.S. envoy again over deadly ship strikes. We whacked some Indians over there. It don't make no difference. They look like Iranians, close enough, right? Indian summoned the U.S. Deputy Chief of Mission in Delhi earlier today to protest U.S. military strikes on commercial vessels off the coast of Oman. And an Indian source told Reuters, marking the second such expression of displeasure in the last 3 days. They look like close enough to Iranians to me. U.S. Deputy Chief of Mission Jason Meeks was first summoned on Wednesday after a U.S. Navy strike that killed 3 Indian sailors aboard the Palau-flagged oil products tanker. On Thursday, yesterday, another vessel with 20 Indian crew members was attacked, though no casualties were reported. The MEA summoned Meeks to lodge a protest against attacks on commercial vessels off the coast of Oman, the source said, referring to India's Ministry of External Affairs. Yesterday, yet another vessel with 20 Indian crew aboard came under attack, the source added. So we run the Strait of Hormuz and we're killing Indians. So, I mean, hashtag we won the war. What? Yeah, that's part of the insanity of all of this. Cyprus, Greece, Aardvark Land, U.S. launch Eastern Mediterranean Energy Center in Houston. Cyprus, Greece, Aardvark Land, and America formally launched the Eastern Mediterranean Energy Center in Houston earlier today and agreed to develop a joint roadmap for future cooperation on energy security, offshore natural gas development, infrastructure innovation, and research. And remember, before the genocide in Gaza, it was announced that a large deposit of natural gas and petroleum was found right off the coast there of the Gaza Strip. Remember that. Remember that. So it was at where's it at? Rice University Baker Institute for Public Policy is where they made this announcement. Here they all are looking to exploit the world's energy, and we do appreciate their efforts in that regard. DOJ has now green-lit Paramount Skydance's $111 billion takeover of Warner Brothers Discovery with zero conditions. And so now Larry Ellison's son, i.e. Larry Ellison, his whole crew, Ultra Zionist, Mr. Stargate, Mr. You're going to behave because we're going to be watching you, is now going to be producing all this pro-Zionist propaganda, and so you will have no choice to turn. The deal combines two of Hollywood's biggest studios with CNN, HBO Max, and Warner Brothers Pictures. California Attorney General, another corrupt bastard, so it's crime syndicate factions fighting each other. And we could get the public to understand this, then they would see things for what they really are instead of, oh, Mr. Attorney General Rob Bonta of California, he's a great citizen and he cares about our health and all the rest of the BS and justice for the people. No, it's factions of the crime syndicate fighting for power and control and exploitation of you and I. Rob Bonta is another criminal. He's the Attorney General of California. He's investigating and could sue to block this merger. I hope he does, but that doesn't make him some great hero of the people. Let me tell you, it's for power and control for his action in the crime syndicate. See it through this lens, people, please. These are not public servants. They don't give a damn about you. They actually want to terminate the majority of us and profiteer off of it and run as many scams, schemes, and fraud as they possibly can along the way. That's all sides in this government. Republican, Democrat, green, red, blue, alien, illegal alien. It doesn't matter. Back to the ritualistic blood sacrifice that kicked off this whole Iran war. Here's Anthropic asked about using AI to commit these war crimes. U.S. military relying on AI as tool to speed Iran operations. Let's watch this clip of an interview he did with Bloomberg.
Bloomberg has reported that Claude is being used by the U.S. military in the war in Iran to do AI-assisted targeting via a platform made by Palantir Maven Smart System. In February, a U.S. missile reportedly hit a girls' school in Iran, killing more than 150 people, most of them children. Did Claude play a role in that strike?
We don't know exactly how, these models were used. Obviously, these things that mistakes that happen in warfare are really, really terrible. Like, this is a really terrible thing to happen. We were willing to risk the future of our company to limit how, these models are used. And, what you're talking about is a use case that doesn't even violate our red lines. We're worried that there will be 100 times as much, with use cases that do violate our red lines. Now, again, I would say, I think overall, the use of
why are all these AI guys just so freaking weird? You know what I mean? Are they even humans? Are they drones, clones, robots, lizard people? Who freaking knows? CIA guys just wearing a mask. DARPA guys just wearing a mask. You know what I mean? They're just all so freaking weird. I don't want these guys in charge of anything. And then the chat there, you got to understand what I say here is you got to read between the lines if you're new to the show. Due to our dealings with YouTube and Google, you have to understand why it's an unprovoked invasion by Wink, wink. We've covered it in great detail, all the history behind Russia, Ukraine here. And for a long time, Google said, don't talk bad about Ukraine. Putin's evil, basically. We will demonetize and censor you if you say anything different. And so you have to learn to read between the lines and understand some heavy sarcasm on this show, so you'll understand what I'm talking about. We've been in the game a minute here now. Okay, continuing. French watchdog reveals Aardvarkland propaganda firm meddled in New York Scottish African elections, as it should be, right? They should control the world elections. Don't be an antiseptic. Earlier today, or yesterday, excuse me, June 11th, French disinformation and digital interference watchdog Vigum linked Aardvarkland firm Black Core, i.e. the Black Cube, i.e. Saturn worship, i.e. dark occult Satanism. Yeah, that same Black Core, Black Cube, it all ties together, trust me. Squaring the circle. Continuing here, the Aardvarkland firm Black Court to digital influence and propaganda campaigns across Europe, Africa, and the United States. We wouldn't have it any other way. The never-ending cries of foreign interference, but if Aardvarkland interferes in our elections, as we've seen AIPAC, what the hell, right? Then it's cheered on and you're shouted down as being bad if you say, well, maybe, I don't like Russia interfering, China, or Aardvarkland. How about that? Or any other foreign actors interfering in our great U.S. democracy. Nope, you're shouted down because God forbid you be an antiseptic for being concerned about foreign influence in our elections from the firm Black Core out of Aardvarkland. Wowzers. The report identified Black Core linked accounts targeting Scottish First Minister John Sweeney, who has described Gaza as a man-made humanitarian catastrophe. So they're targeting people calling out their war crimes, obviously. There now, as they targeted Massey there in Kentucky. Yeah. Let's go through here talking about the different meddling they've done in foreign elections, all for speaking out against genocide is the big crime there in Gaza. The operation functions as what analysts call a, quote, digital iron dome designed to suppress dissent online, dissenting online content through AI-driven surveillance and mass reporting while simultaneously flooding social media platforms with state-sponsored narratives. Wowzers. Wowzers, wowzers, wowzers. Yeah, they are doing that. The Hasbro, we continue to report massive $1 million propaganda campaigns. And this is part of it as well. Foreign election interference, thereby the digital, what's it called again? Digital Iron Dome. Senate committee approves 2027 NDAA that seeks to integrate U.S. Aardvarkland militaries. We should be extremely concerned about this. It passed out. What was it, section 244, I think? If I remember correctly off the top of my head, the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee approved. It made it out of that committee, the 2027 NDAA, yesterday by a vote of 18-9, advancing the bill to the full Senate for consideration. And so that's essentially, we've covered it here, linking up our military with Aardvarkland, excuse me. It was section 224, not 244, 224 of the NDAA. What a nightmare all of this is. So now it's going to the full Senate floor. And we've covered all the ins and outs of it, but what a freaking nightmare all this is. Hey, we don't have to give them foreign aid. Now they're just part of our government giving our troops orders. Yay! This freaking character right here. We're getting the antiseptics. Maybe this guy should be looking out for, I don't know, his own community. Nah, he's fully corrupted by the Zionist Leo Terrell here now.
Let me be very clear. Free speech, First Amendment free speech does not allow individuals on the local level, federal level, to incite and to encourage crimes or to encourage victims to be basically denied their personal rights. Let me be very clear. What is happening is free speech is being used to allow Jewish communities to be attacked. And what happens? Todd, these individuals get arrested and they're released. I would ask anyone watching this program, where are the hate crime charges being filed by Alvin Bragg in New York or in Chicago or in Los Angeles or in Detroit? You know where the hate crime charges are being filed? By the Department of Justice on the federal level. What I'm trying to do in this 15-city tour is to make sure that citizens in these cities who are not getting help at the local level, they have alternatives from the federal government and to make sure they know what their rights are. It's not only the failure to prosecute hate crimes, Todd, but it's a indoctrination of these teachers' unions to brain.
DOJ launches 15-city antiseptic awareness tour. That's a great use of taxpayer money. How about stop genociding? That could also help with their image, but they don't want to hear about that. Here's a traitor, Mike Huckabee, U.S. ambassador to Aardvark land. This guy is just too much.
But above all, it is not diplomatic, it is not economic, it is not political, and it is not even military. And Israel has an amazing military. It is astonishing that a tiny little country of 10 million people outpunches its weight over and over again when it is threatened with its existence by those who have 10 times the population, many more times the military budget, and yet it doesn't just survive, it thrives. So is that what the secret is? And I would say to you, no, it's none of that. The secret is that 3,800 years ago, God told Abraham, I'm going to create a people, and you're it. And I'm going to put you in a place, and this is it. And this is going to be your place, and I'm going to give you a purpose, and you're going to fulfill it. And it doesn't matter who rises up against the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And it does not matter how dark sometimes the night may get. Because as it says in the Psalms, joy comes in the morning. And we are living in a land that is able to exceed what it should be able to do, whether it's the military, the economy, diplomacy, agriculture, technology. And the reason is none of those things. The reason is because God Almighty put his hand on the land, and because God himself has said, this is how you...
Mike Huckabee's a lying criminal, war criminal, traitor to America, and he's going to face judgment for these lies and twisting of the Bible. The UK and the Rothschild Bank created the modern state of Aardvark land, so save it there, bud, with all your fake BS. Here's Rabbi Mizrachi, Yusuf Mizrachi, says the Goyim gets angry that the Aardvarks are in control. I don't know. There's conspiracies out there saying the Aardvarks run the world. I don't know. This guy's making the claim. I wonder why they're angry. I don't know. Listen to this rabbi.
The Goyim gets angry. The Jews in control. The Jews in control. They control the money. So who will control the money? You? You compare yourself to the chosen people. You don't see their blessing by God. It's good for you that they run the country and they run the world and they run economy. The whole world came to destroy the Jews, all the empires, all of them are gone, and the Jews remain always in power. That's unheard of. According to the laws of nature, the Jews should have died already in the first year after they got the Torah, when Amalek already.
They did. The real ones out of the Bible did. These are frauds. They're not even septics. These imposters are out of Europe. They say I'm sticking with Trump with the Democrat. It doesn't matter. Do you guys understand? It quite literally does not matter. Republican, Democrat, the government wins every election, and it's a crime syndicate. Here's the Albanian protesters mocks the notion Ivanka Trump discovered their island. They're still having protests there in Albania over this, rightfully so. They may be genocided next. Let's watch this short report about the Albanian protests over the private island grab there by Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump that's being attempted to be pulled off, a former Soviet-era submarine base with all kinds of bunkers and military installations. They're attempting to flee there as they collapse society on the back of their evil and corruption. Here's some more from Albanian protesters.
How did it make you feel when you saw her talking about the island?
I was mad because the island is ours, not hers.
It's an unbelievable, beautiful 1,400 hectare private island in the middle of the Mediterranean. We were on a friend's boat and we stopped for a swim. Effectively, that's how we found it.
She discovered the island, right? Yeah. That was very funny. And the sad at the same time. Well, we have only one island.
Yeah.
And I'm a tour guide and I go into that island like 60 times per year.
Yeah.
I wanna go another 60 times more. We need it, it's ours. We don't want to sell it.
How did it
Earlier today, in the last 24 hours, we'll call it for sake of timely and accurate reporting, a new wave of aardvark land attacks have been reported throughout southern Lebanon. Aardvark land warplanes striking. They go through all these different places. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce them, but they're leveling southern Lebanon right now. We do have some images of the attacks, ongoing attacks. This is the big sticking point. How are you going to have peace with Iran if they continue bombing Lebanon? You're not. You're not. And we got a bunch more video. That one went on, but you could see they're leveling a joint, just like they did with Gaza. Here's on the ground reporter there, Courtney Banu. She has a French last name. You could see her reporting from a pile of rubble.
Hi, reporting to you from the town of Zefta in the Nabatea district. I want to apologize for the sound because I have again lost my mic. The Nabatea district has witnessed an unusually high amount of Israeli strikes in the last week, resulting in heavy damage to civilian areas. And one of the most significant strikes this week happened right here in Zefta. On June 9th, an Israeli airstrike hit a residential area, killing 7 civilians, including a woman and a child. Violent Israeli attacks have also hit Kvartignit, Arnoon, Habush, Yahmur, Shakiv, Zautar, and Haruf on a daily basis. Today, they hit Toul and they hit some other areas in this district, including Nabatea Al Fauqa, which killed 1 person on a motorcycle. Even though the ceasefire negotiations are ongoing, the violence committed against Lebanon has not stopped. Yesterday, the Israeli army attacked 50 towns with airstrikes, drone strikes, and artillery shelling, killing multiple people. On average, Israel kills 37 people per day in Lebanon. Since March 2nd, per the Lebanese Ministry of Health, 3,711 people have been killed and 11,500 people have been wounded in Israeli attacks. Israel is committing acts of genocide in Lebanon, and they are using American taxpayer dollars to do that. So call your congressman, call your local politicians, and demand to know where your tax money is being sent.
Quite horrific. Quite horrific. They're also using white phosphorus on numerous occasions. It's been reported. It's used. That's a war crime. That's crimes against humanity. Hezbollah now is Hezbollah operations room said its fighters repelled an Aardvark land ground advance. And so the Hezbollah militia there is defending the sovereignty of Lebanon more than the Lebanese army at this point, and has been throughout this entire nightmare, actually. So they just put out a statement. They're in battles right now with the IDF on the ground in Lebanon. Francesca Albanese. U.S. took sanctions off her. They put them back on her. She's still out there ringing the alarm. For those unfamiliar, Francesca Albanese is the UN Special Rapporteur for Palestine, and she put out two big academic reports, one documenting the countries involved and profiteering off of the genocide in Gaza. The second, the companies involved in the profiteering off the genocide in Gaza. And for her efforts exposing all of these war criminals, she subsequently was sanctioned by the Western banking system, by America, by the central bank cartel, for her efforts to expose these war crimes and crimes against humanity. We reported in great detail on her report at Weaponized News. It's all there for you, for those that care, or go look up her reports and read them yourself. I would advise that, actually. Here she posts, while the usual minions spread new falsehoods about fellow UN experts and me, here is what Aardvark land and its supporters want absolutely you not to see: the body of evidence. And there's a new, and I won't play it because they'll put me for third-party content, whatever, violating community guidelines on the YouTube, but you should go see it, actually, if you could stomach it. It's extremely graphic and disturbing, but here it is. Aardvark Land's Darkest Weapon, a documentary there by Al Jazeera on the YouTube. I'll link to it on Weaponized News Substack, further documenting the abuse there of the Palestinians by Aardvark Land. It's quite horrific. She also went on to say, why are we letting Aardvark Land soldiers destroy every inch of Palestine? It is a war. Would you accept others to do this and at your home? Let's stop this genocide together. Diplomats, politicians, judges, police officers, journalists, citizens, anyone can and must take action. And here's some scenes from Gaza. They're continuing the campaign in Gaza upon reports of a full-on ground invasion back into Gaza. This is Gaza, not Lebanon. They're continuing the demolition campaign there as the job is not done yet. As Katz and others have continued to tell us. Some more images out of Gaza, the leveling, the creation of the apocalyptic hellscape continues there. So isn't that cute? The kids playing in the rubble in Gaza, the ones that are still alive, that have all their limbs and are not mangled by the war. Overnight, the Aardvark land military issued forced displacement orders for several areas in Al-Maghazi refugee camp in central Gaza. They're already in a refugee camp, and now they're being kicked out, ethnically cleansed out of the refugee camp, if you could imagine that. Displacement orders covering schools, a rehabilitation center, the municipality building, and the area containing the camp's wells and its source of fresh water. They're already in a refugee camp. Now they have to leave. They'll probably be killed. I mean, it's just, what do you even... They're bombing tents. So they're like, go move to that tent and we'll bomb you over there. But here's some more images. They're like, you can't live in that pile of rubble anymore. Oh, here's a crater of the bombing. You can see right there. You can't live in that pile of rubble or tent anymore. Go to the next one. We'll whack you there. I mean, it's... Aardvark land killed more Palestinians in occupied West Bank since 2023 than the prior 17 years combined. A new report out of Oxfam. An Oxfam analysis of UN data published yesterday reveals that more Palestinians have been killed in the occupied West Bank by Aardvark land forces and settlers over the last 3 years than in the preceding 17 years combined. Between 2023 and 2025, the number of Palestinians killed in the occupied West Bank reached 1,244, including 268 children, compared to 1,036 Palestinians killed between 2006 and 2022. They don't even have an excuse. They don't even claim that there are terrorists in the occupied West Bank. It's just, our evil God told us 3,000 years ago that it's our land, and you, actual septics there, are out. And that's what they're systematically going about doing, building out the greater Aardvark land project, as we continue to report, to fulfill their fake BS prophecies to build a third temple. Amnesty International formally concludes Aardvark land is executing a deliberate state policy of ethnic cleansing. You don't say. Well, I guess it's official now. A thorough report by Amnesty International published 2 days ago on June 10th asserts that the Aardvark land government is executing an ethnic cleansing campaign in Area C of the occupied West Bank, citing extensive field research and verified digital evidence. Between January 2023 and April 2026, state-backed settler violence and administrative restrictions forcibly displaced 5,910 Palestinians and 117 Bedouin and herding communities. The organization concluded these actions constitute the war crime of unlawful transfer and the crime against humanity of forcible transfer. Senior officials, including Smotrich and Ben Gavir, have explicitly facilitated this policy. By January 2026, Aardvark land issued over 240,000 firearm licenses to civilians, i.e. ultra-Zionist settlers. Amnesty International documented armed settlers, often surrounded by the IDF, raiding villages and sabotaging critical public infrastructure. In one instance, sanctioned settler Levy killed activist there in a Palestinian activist, Hathleen al-Hathleen, on January 28th of last year, 2025, while the Aardvark land military claims troops act to disperse those involved to restore order. The research found the military often participated in or enabled the violence. Consequently, 45 communities were fully depopulated. Amnesty International urges third states to impose targeted sanctions on officials like Shadow President of America, Bibi, and the rest of the crew there to end the sustained and deliberate state policy of dispossession. That is evil. That is evil. What the IDF and ultra-Zionist settlers are doing there in the occupied West Bank, where there's not even a claim of Hamas terrorists being there. It's just, we own your land because it's divinely promised to us by our evil God 3,000 years ago, essentially. Quite horrific indeed there. We do need a third party with some authority to take action. Okay, on to, that's all the reporting I got. Let's get to the latest, greatest headlines out of Iran International as we await a MOU signing here. Now, Iran says it will sign an MOU with the U.S. remotely if finalized. Again, I don't see how, as long as Aardvark continues the massacres and land theft, which they've said, reported earlier, Kat said they're not stopping anything. I don't see how there's going to be a peace deal. I really don't. But this is a step, signing the MOU, to come to the table. So maybe we can have a peace deal here. But with the bloodthirsty, hell-bent Aardvarks, kind of feels like they're going to do something to screw all this up and piss off Iran one more time. U.S. downed Iranian drones targeting commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. U.S.-Iran deal could be reached within days. Secretary of the U.S. Treasury, Bissett, says U.S. forces shoot down multiple Iranian one-way attack drones. There's still shooting going on right there in the midst of negotiating, possibly signing an MOU to possibly sit down and possibly negotiate some type of peace deal. It's where we're at on this Friday. It's really where we're at on this Friday. Iranian MP criticizes parliament media over leaked draft on Iran-U.S. talks. Service fee collection for Strait of Hormuz is part of negotiations, Iran says. And I saw reports too, it was unconfirmed reports, Iran's still shooting missiles across the bow warning shots there in the Strait of Hormuz, like right now. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Latest headlines out of Al Jazeera: Iran, U.S. sign deal, signal deal within reach as Aardvark continues attacks on Lebanon. See? That's why I don't have much faith and confidence that all of this is going to lead to actual peace with Iran on day 105 of the war, even though we've defeated their army, navy, all of them, a bunch of times per Trump, but they're still shooting rockets over our heads in the Strait of Hormuz. Let's pray for peace, friends. My hopes are not high, honestly, sadly. My hopes are not high when it hinges on Aardvark land not killing people. That's kind of their thing. They've told us multiple times and through their actions. All right. Let's go over to the channels now. Over to Odysee. Shout out to Fat Bob, to Huffman over there on the Odysee. Shout out to John. See if I can get some comments. Fat Bob says nothing will wash the stink out of Vance. They're trying. They're trying right now to wash the stink off of Vance and distance himself from the stink of Trump. Huffman says he'll be all right as long as he can keep people talking about his eyeliner. Does it say anything about Michael Jackson in the Epstein files, Sam? There are pictures of Michael Jackson, the pop singer, with Epstein in the Epstein files. As far as emails back and forth, I've not seen anything like that. But there is photographic evidence that at one time Michael Jackson was hanging out with Epstein. Photographic evidence of that. Musk is our new Walt Disney, Fat Bob says. Musk now probably owns all of Florida. Apparently, it's a bigger scam than just the IPO. It manipulates the whole index. Indeed. It manipulates a whole heck of a lot. And they twisted and bent and broke every rule in place to stop this type of corruption from happening for the explorer of the galaxy. See, Fat Bob says, Sam, I fear a coming catastrophe like the likes only you and Greg Manarino talk about. Jeez. I have a credit card problem, all the defaulters. Fat Bob says, some others, yeah, Judge Knapp kept it real. Charles Salente keeping it real. Jack Gamble, in so many words. Them guys. Greg Hunter lost it, unfortunately. I have to agree with you there, Fat Bob. I do have to agree because they can't let go of Trump. Trump's taken down many people with him because they just can't admit. I don't know what the deal is. They just can't admit they were conned and wrong by Orange Man. Let's see. John says, I got around to subscribing on Substack today. Wow. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. The account from which I previously dispersed was closed due to security compromise. Thank you. Thank you, John, for subscribing, becoming a paid subscriber. We do appreciate that. And reworking it through your through your security. Let's see. Fat Bob says, I gotta get Tom Cruise on the phone and get him to get his Mission Impossible team along with the A team to kick some arse. I hear you. Iran means land of the Aryans, and they are Aryans, not Indian, John said. Yep. And the friggin' aardvarks in aardvark land, the large majority are not even septics. They're killing the actual septics, genociding them to show you how screwed up everything is in this satanic inversion of reality we find that the ultra-Zionists and bankers have created for us. It's also wonderful. And the DOJ's on a city-wide tour across America to stamp out any dissent. Right? Man, do I hate this Huckabee. Yeah, I'm telling you. straight up traitor. Who gets away with being a U.S. ambassador and literally hanging out with a convicted spy of that country against America? Who could do that but for his septic behavior? Fat Bob says, well, Pat Henningsen, Sunday show, showed the corporate structure who owns the island enough to where the PM is high level on the corporate board. World's a business, Mr. Beal, i.e., quote from Network. It's an all-time classic. I hear you, Bob. I hear you, Fat Bob. John says, Iran only needs to exterminate the aardvarks. I would laugh for days if the contrived state collapsed and the Palestinians took over power. That would be some justice from the universe for the Palestinians, that's for sure. For the real septics there. It is an outrage that there are Palestinians in refugee camps in the land they occupied for thousands of years. Yeah. It's even more outrageous that they get ethnic cleanse out of a freaking refugee camp. Like, you can't even live in a refugee camp there. If you understand that the Z's are a globalist group and they state that they intend to reduce world population by 90% and enslave the remaining Goy population, they plan to rule the world from Jerusalem. There is an anti-Zionist pact now. The man organizing the movement is pleading for $10 for anyone who wants to see an opposing force in government. I believe he calls it AZA PAC. Trump has no intention of making a peace deal. The aardvarks are making their big move against the only force in the Middle East that can impede the aggression of aardvarks. That's what John said, yeah. I got to agree with you. Yeah, sadly enough, I wish it wasn't so, but I mean, come on, we got to live in reality of the situation here and not be smoking a bunch of opium. And that is indeed the case. Thank you guys for tuning in on the Odysee and chatting it up. Thank you for tuning in on X, Kick, Bitchute, Substack, YouTube, and Rumble. Let's go about halfway up. We had quite a few comments on the YouTube, some new viewers tuning in here now, confused by some of my reporting. Just scrolling up about halfway, I'm looking for the Rumble audience. Quite a few comments on the YouTube. Shout out to Bardo on the YouTube there, or excuse me, Rumble. It says Victoria Nuland was behind Biolabs in Ukraine. She should be under investigation. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, she should be under investigation. Should Russia have these? No, nobody should have them, actually. Nobody should. Nobody should be doing gain of function biological weapons research. Free America from APAC, Richard said on the YouTube. Yeah. Shout out to Mac. Thank you for tuning in and missing that Buffalo Soldiers documentary to tune into Weaponized News. Appreciate it here. Let's see. Sama indicates super polite Japanese Sama Sen radio, Mac said. You're so effing jealous. You have no clue how to react to the modern day Nikola Tesla. It's really unflattering. Get a life. Oh, he's talking about Musk. Yeah. Sure, Carlos on the YouTube. He's the modern day Nikola Tesla. Not really jealous, but just tired of the never-ending lies, scams, schemes, and frauds that benefit the insiders here now, as the rest of us struggle to pay for groceries, bud. That's the reality of the situation here on Main Street. Darren says, oh, they're talking amongst themselves. Let's see. It wasn't Trump who set up J6ers. It was openly stated and admitted to by Nancy Pelosi. Bro, I interviewed Peter Duke. He has his own show and he talks about it. He was the official photographer for the freaking events there. And he literally agrees that Trump set up his supporters on January 6th, bro. So save your BS propaganda and whatever fantasies you want to live in. We're reporting the facts of the matter here from people that were there, that were big MAGA Trump supporters until he sold them out and they saw it firsthand. I don't just say these things to run my mouth and talk shit on Trump. Ajax, they're saying Putin is not the most evil man in the world. You got to understand the context. War criminals and crimes against humanity, and you can't say anything. James says there, yeah. Well, you're not supposed to, right? You're not supposed to say anything, or you're antiseptic, and I know that's the worst sin that you could commit here in America. With they're turning the screws. They got an antiseptic task force running around looking for offenders, and you're like, bro, they're genocide, war crimes, not good. They're like, well, you're a bad person for saying that. The entire company's Denver on the YouTube. Shout out to Denver, says the entire economy is 7 companies passing fake trillions back and forth to another. Yeah, that's about it, actually. Yeah. With all rigged up balance sheets, right? Passing their accounts receivable and payables back and forth. Leapfrog oligarchs, Max says, yeah. Craig says opinions are like a-holes. Everyone has one. Let's see here. Gary says, we love Trump. Why, Gary? Seriously, why? Trump American pride, Greg says. But Trump's screwing us over, brother. Trump's a lying, fraud, con man. And so there's nothing American pride about him whatsoever. Maybe someday you'll see this. It's well, he's lied. He's lied about everything. We have no mass deportations, no public health reform. We're in never-ending war here now again. And go down the list of many lies and campaign promises broken by Trump. All right, friends, that's all the reporting I have for today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in on all of the channels, keeping it lively in the chat. Head on over to the boiler room. I do believe that, well, you need to watch this show longer. We continue to document it here, Greg. All the archives are on all our channels. You can go take a look at all of the reporting about it. Don't get stuck in that right-wing echo chamber here now, please. Or Trump, actually, MAGA media echo chamber. There's a big world out there, and Trump's corruption has become legion at this point. You need to take a look at some of the very credible reports about it as we continue to report here at Weaponized News. As always, everybody do your own research. Peace, love, and freedom. Speak out and take action. Have a great rest of your Friday evening. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday for more Weaponized News. Let's pray for peace, that this whole thing moves along. This is just one step in a long process to bring about the end of the Iran war. Let's hope they can bring them to the table and nothing insane happens here now over the weekend. Let's pray for peace. I'll see you guys on Monday.